Recently, I've got quite a lot of questions concerning Sprint Zero. You know, this mystical sprint that Scrum teams usually run prior to Sprint 1. It's a touchy subject. There's a lot of opinions on whether this Sprint Zero should exist or not in a Scrum project. By the end of this video, you'll know everything there is to know about Sprint Zero, the pros, the cons, and if you should run one with your Scrum team. First off, the Sprint Zero is a commonly used term to describe pre-sprint activities. So prior to starting Sprint 1, Sprint 2, we do a Sprint Zero. It's done only once and there's no formal content or guideline on how to do a Sprint Zero. And there's a reason for that. Remember, as per the Scrum framework, the entire Scrum team is accountable for creating a valuable working increment every single sprint. And this is not done in a Sprint Zero. I'm not against a Sprint Zero. No, far from that. There's a lot of pre-sprint activities that need to be done prior for the team to be able to start Sprint 1. What I don't like is using the word Sprint Zero because it might confuse newcomers to Scrum. People who are just learning about Scrum, using Agile for the first time, they might get confused by the word Sprint Zero because they might think that sprints are different. Sprint 0, you need to do X. Sprint 1, you need to do Y. Sprint 2, you need to do A. No, all the sprints should be similar. The goal of a sprint is to create a valuable working increment every single sprint. And having a Sprint 0 with a different goal might confuse people, which also might distract people from the goal of Scrum, which is producing value to the market, to the customer as soon as possible to get feedback. Releasing every single sprint is a must when using Scrum. But still, with the teams I support, I always do a Sprint Zero. I don't call it a Sprint Zero, but at least I do these activities because they provide clarity. Clarity on how long the project will be. What are we trying to achieve together? What's the vision of a team, of a product? Will there be a release planning? Is the team cross-functional? Do we even have a team? Is the team cross-functional? Do we have all the skills, knowledge required in order to build the product? Are the servers ready? Is the team able to start development right now? Are there dependencies involved? When should we involve these dependencies, these other teams? What product are we trying to build? Do we have a customer avatar? What are the wants and needs of a customer? What does success look like for us, for the team, and for the product? The Sprint Zero is a great place to answer all these questions together as a single unit, a single team, without going into too much details. We don't want to use the waterfall model here, designing for months, planning for months. No, we want to do the minimum amount of planning, designing, writing requirements, user stories required prior to starting Sprint 1. It needs to be done. All these pre-activities need to be done, but keep it short as possible. Some teams like time boxing Sprint 0 to 1 week, 2 weeks. I don't like this strategy. Remember, the goal is to start Sprint 1 as soon as possible so that we can start providing value to customers, releasing to the market. So the question should be, what are the minimum pre-activities that we need to do right now in order to start Sprint 1? Maybe even 1 week is too much. We need to do these pre-activities, but it should be very short. And as soon as the team is comfortable to start Sprint 1, they should start it right now. So how do you run the Sprint Zero? What are the steps required? Well, as mentioned earlier, there's no formal guidance on how to run it, but I prepared for you a step-by-step guide on how I do it, what I like using, and I feel that this approach is good, starting with a mindset. The way I see the Sprint Zero is a project before the project. In companies, especially big companies, prior to starting a project, an initiative, someone needs to decide in the company if it makes even sense to do all these things. It makes sense to start the project, and this decision is often a project in itself, and this is exactly what the Sprint Zero. The way I see the Sprint Zero, it's a project prior to the project. But remember the goal. The goal is to keep the project before the project as fast, as short as possible, and as soon as we are comfortable to start Sprint 1, we should start it right now. Same as any other sprint, there should be an outcome, a sprint goal that we are working towards. What do we need to complete by the end of a sprint? This should be agreed on prior to the Sprint Zero by everyone in the team, and you document all these things in backlog items, product backlog items, to document all the things that the team has agreed to complete by the end of Sprint Zero, starting with the first one. deciding on the programming language, deciding on what database to use, all the environments that are required. Start to set up these environments. What is the product vision? What are we trying to achieve? What is the customer avatar? What are the needs, pain points, wants of the customer? After you agree on all these things and you do a lot of research and agree on all these things, you should be at a good place to know if all the people in the team have the skills and knowledge required in order to build this product together. Is the team cross-functional? Step 2, by now you should have a Scrum team, a cross-functional Scrum team. Next is to agree on the sprint length. How long will the sprint be? 1 week? 2 weeks? When will the sprint events be? The daily scrum, what time? The sprint review, the sprint retrospective, what date, what time? Agree on the definition of ready. Agree on the definition of done. Create a working agreement together. What are our values? How will the team work together? And then you can spend some time bonding. Do some team bonding activities. Go grab a drink. Go for lunch. Do some games, play some games together, get to know each other. Step 3, you're now very close to starting Sprint 1. Ensure that everyone in the team understands the Agile values, the Agile principles, the Scrum framework, their role, their responsibilities in the Scrum team. And start writing the user stories, the actual user stories to populate the product backlog. Step 4, we should be able to close Sprint 0 and start Sprint 1 at any point now. As soon as the definition of ready is met, the definition of ready the team agreed on prior in Step 1 is met for all the priority backlog items, the actual user stories, you can start and do the sprint planning for Sprint 1. So the team at this point, the team should research, build prototypes, write user stories, work together to get these items refined and ready. And as soon as they are, start the sprint planning for Sprint 1. And agree on a sprint goal and start the actual Sprint 1. You should involve your stakeholders during this entire process. Transparency, very important. Getting feedback from stakeholders, very important. Keep them updated on your findings. What are we trying to build together? What product are we trying to build? Did we agree on who will be our customers, the wants, the needs of a customer? What does success look like for the product, for the team? How will we measure success? Have we estimated it yet? By when should we release the MVP, the minimum valuable product? Do we have a release date already? All these things need to be discussed with the stakeholders and get their feedback. Again, please keep the Sprint 0 short and concise. Don't fall into the trap of planning everything, planning for weeks, for months. This is waterfall and this is against the mindset or the goal of Scrum. Keep it short and remember, we want to start Sprint 1 as soon as possible, as soon as ready items are present in the backlog. Prioritize ready items, start the sprint planning and start Sprint 1. The goal should be to release as early as possible to the customer. Which brings me to my next point. If you want more tips, insights on Agile, Scrum, personal growth, click on the video that stands out the most on the screen right now and I'll see you in a few seconds.